Hello, welcome to Knittings and Sewings, episode 39. I'm Shelley from the Kansas City area, and this is the place at Knittings and Sewings where we talk about all things knitting, sewing, spinning, crochet, weaving, and many other fiber topics. I'd like to welcome you to our episode. If you have been here before, welcome back. And for those of you who are new, welcome aboard. I hope you will find some interesting content in a variety of different fiber crafts. So we will get started today. I want to mention I'm drinking out of my War of the Worlds coffee mug that I purchased some time ago on Etsy, I believe. And then I'm drinking the flavored coffee Cameron's Chocolate Caramel Brownie that is available at a lot of grocery stores. I enjoy drinking flavored coffee because I drink my coffee black, but it gives me a little taste of kind of a, flavor like a dessert coffee. And so I often do drink a flavored coffee. Today, I have quite a few things to talk about, but I want to mention that we have had a historically big snowstorm for the Kansas City area. We had 11 inches that hit on Monday. So I'm definitely getting into a winter mind frame, and it has kind of caused our whole city to be in a little bit of a flux this week. I had to work from home 2 days this week, and it's caused a lot of delays, including in a little eye surgery I was supposed to have to help my vision. So anyway, but it is what it is. We have to just go with it. And so the snow, we had another little snow Friday also. So we really have a winter climate now that is making me think sweater weather. How about you? The sweater I'm wearing today is one I made 2 years ago called the Soldotna, Soldotna by Caitlin Hunter. And I'm going to put up both a picture of the Soldotna here, as well as I'm going to put a link down below. So if any of you want to work on the Soldotna, it's a very popular Fair Isle pattern, and it's an easy one for people who have not done a Fair Isle sweater before. It's an easy one, very clear-cut directions to get started on. And because it's short-sleeved and it's cropped, I'm going to stand up just a moment to show you that it's definitely cropped. So I chose to not only make this, but to use my hand-spun yarn in the process. And because it was a cropped sweater, I used my spindle, my spindle like this. What do they call this? Supported spindle. This is what I used. This is one of my favorite spindles by Robin Goaty, the Dancing Goats. I'll put a link to his site as well. But I love this particular spindle because you can just take off after you've spun your yarn. He calls this a bone. You can just take off, and this is a historic replica kind of a historic spindle. So I enjoy this spindle a lot. I spun all 4 of the yarns that you see in this sweater. So we have the biggest part of the sweater was a brown tweed that is the main part, and it has flecks of red, yellow, and blue, as well as, red, yellow, and blue flecks. So that's how I came up with the color scheme. I started with the brown tweed and wanted something that would complement the brown tweed main color. And though I'm not usually a fan of yellow, I love the other colors, the teal and the red. So I decided, well, I'm going to go with what's in the sweater, or in the main fiber. And that's how I came up with the colors that I used. Now, Caitlin Hunter has an excellently written pattern. I knitted this originally. I was going to use a size 3 needle. However, as I was knitting along into the yoke, it's top down, as I was knitting further into the yoke in the yellow section, I realized as I tried it on, because I could try it on as I made it, I realized that it was a little bit tight, because then I realized Fair Isle, you are going to get a tighter stitch. So I ended up going up to a size 5 needle. I ripped out what I'd started again with a size 5 needle. It went much better. And I also went up a size in the sweater itself. I had started making the second size and ended up going to the third size, so it'd be a little bit roomier and more comfortable. And so anyway, those are the main changes I made. In addition to that, I did use the crop length. I went down 9 body repeats in order to get to the length that I wanted. And because I only had 800 yards, actually I think I had 900, but I used 800 yards of the hand spun to complete this crop sweater, keeping in mind it doesn't have sleeves, it's short sleeved, and it's cropped. So I didn't need as much yarn as I would have needed for a full-size pullover. So this very much fit the bill for me. I've loved wearing this sweater over the past couple of years, and now that we finally have winter weather, I can get back to wearing it again, and I'm really excited to do that. One thing that I wanted to mention is in the very near future, like in the next few days, I'm going to be using my hand spun once again to make a sweater. This is the red yarn. It's called Crimson, the color, in Dharma Trading Company. It's a acid dye I used to dye over my fleece that I spun, and it's taken me quite a while to get this spun up, but it's a 2-ply, and it was white. The original color was a creamy white. That is a BFL fleece that I got from, it's a BFL mix fleece that I bought from Missouri Town a couple of years ago. Maybe 3 years ago I bought it, but it took me a while to spin enough yarn to get the 1,200 yards I needed for a cardigan sweater. And I am a little bit worried about running out of yardage, but hopefully 1,200 yards will be enough. And so I decided this time it might be a good idea to make a cropped cardigan, just like I made this cropped pullover with the Soldotna. It might be a good idea to go with a cropped pattern. And so I have chosen the Kate Davies pattern called Carbeth. It's Carbeth, and it's Kate Davies, Davies. I'm going to put up a link to a picture of the pattern and a link for any of you that would like to check it out. It's been around for a few years. She has both a Carbeth pullover pattern you can purchase or a Carbeth cardigan. And I am going to try the cardigan and see how that goes. I'm going to be making a gauge swatch here in just a matter of a couple of days. So I'll let you know how that goes. But I did want to point out that I finally have decided what I'm going to be doing with this hand spun yarn. And I'm really excited to get started on another sweater project. And so we're doing this as part of our knit along with our knitting group. Every few months, our knitting group that meets locally here in person, we decide to do a knit along. And so this is going to be our knit along. Each one of us actually is going to make the sweater of our choice. I chose the Carbeth. Not everyone is using hand spun yarn, but if you would like to knit a sweater along with me, feel free to do that. This is a choose your own sweater adventure, and so people in our knitting group are choosing different sweaters. And but anyway, there's several of us that will be participating here locally, and so if you would like to knit a sweater along with us, if you're in the sweater weather mood to knit something, then feel free to join in, and you can work on whatever sweater project you want, whether it's a pullover, a vest, a cropped sweater, a full-size sweater, a cardigan, whatever choice you want to make. Hello everyone, and now we're going to talk a little bit about the crochet I've been doing. Walter here has joined me for this section. He helped a lot with the granny square tote that I made this month. And this is if you remember the granny squares that I was working on this summer, these individual granny squares. I have now assembled them into the bag and it's complete, so I'm now going to be able to carry this wonderful bag. And I'm not sure yet if I'm going to use it as a project bag or a purse. But at any rate, I did want to show you some of the steps that were involved. First of all, I will link to the pattern. It is the Granny Square Tote by Erica Makes. And the first step is to crochet the granny squares. I got the idea for this project by watching, there is a lady named Moonstone Makes who also sometimes dyes yarn. She's in Northern California. She made this purse originally in the summer for her mom, and she used the exact colors I used. So that's where I got the idea that I wanted to make this in the first place. I'll put a link to her website or her YouTube talking about it, so in case you'd like to see her bag as well. But what I did was to use the Caron Cakes yarn recommended by her, and this is a Lion brand yarn called Purplexed. The color is Purplexed. It's purple and has varying shades of purple lilac and almost a purple black. I use this for the main body to make variegated colors of squares in purple, lilac, blue, and gray. And then I used the outside stitching and the putting it together stitching. I used this Purplexed, which is a Lion brand yarn that I will link to. It's called Big Twist. That's the type of yarn it is. So I used these yarns, and I actually had one more ball of this, and I handpicked the colors I was wanting to do. There were a total of 13 squares. So now I'm going to show you a little clip of how I was sewing it together and putting it together. Here we go. We are now going to take a quick look at the granny square tote that I mentioned to you in episode 38, that I had begun with the plan of assembling the granny squares together. This is a pattern called the Granny Square Tote by Erica Made. And I have all my little purple and gray and blue squares, and I have put them in an order I feel will be good for me for this little purple bag. And what I'm going to be doing, to begin with, I needed to whip stitch the different, put them in order of how they go, which I did. And I've whip stitched the rows and, put this much together already. And now I need to finish up. I will whip stitch this row and this particular one together next. That will be the last thing I'll whip stitch. And my plan is to do a surface crochet. I practiced right there because I want kind of a kitschy, cute edging on top. And so I'll be doing that once I get everything together here. And then the whole thing will be folded here in the middle and put together. And so I've had to be very careful in following the diagram that Erica Made presents in her pattern, because I have kind of a little bit of confusion on directions at times. I often joke that I have a directional dyslexia, but I think I really do. So I have to be very careful. Whenever I'm sewing, I always use my Millie, the dress form, to make sure I have all the pattern pieces in order and that I put things together and sew them together in the right order. So with this kind of a bag, I definitely have to make sure it's in order, because it's going to be folded and become a top and bottom, and one of the squares is going to flip around, which I can show you once I get to that point. But I wanted to show you at this point what I was doing, and also to show you my plan is to make a bag strap handle. I took an old belt that I got from a thrift store some years ago, and I've never worn it much. So what I'm going to do is sew this together. It's a cloth belt. I'm going to sew it in half lengthwise so that it makes a narrow but very firm belt, because very often with crochet bags, the thing I've noticed with knit and crochet bags is that if you use a knit or crochet strap, it can become really weak and stretchy, because by nature, knitting particularly is very stretchy, and even crochet can be. So I'm going to use this basic, very firm belt, cloth belt, as a basis, and I'm going to crochet around this so that it still has that crochet appearance, but it'll have the strength of the fabric. And so I'm also going to sew in a cloth fabric lining as well. So I will show you that as we get to that step, but I wanted to show you the laying out and how this works, how it will go together. And so far, I'm really excited to get this bag together. I'm finally almost finished stitching it. So I want to talk one more thing about the bag overall. I did do surface crochet. The way I chose to stitch it together was by doing a slip stitch, kind of a whip stitch, to first of all put the squares together in the right order. And then I decided to do surface crochet, which you can see the purple there stitching around each square. That was using surface crochet. And I am going to provide a link as well to surface crochet, because if you've never done that before, that's kind of a fun thing to do. And then I decided it needed a button. So I did add the button and the little crochet, single crochet little thing to hold it together. And then I did add a lining inside with some pockets. So now I want to show you very quickly the description of how I put that all together. So here we go. Okay, this is the final step of making sense of how this bag will come together. If you can see, I've stitched everything together now. Everything is in place in the configuration that the pattern shows. So I've stitched it all together, and if this works, if I did it correctly, it'll be like magic how this comes together. The center square here is the folding square. Right now I have everything facing right side, laying right side, but I'm going to want to turn it so that the right side is inside, so that I can stitch it together properly. And what we're doing is bringing these two together like so. They match. Everything here is double layered except for these two squares on the side. They will come together like that. And the way this becomes a bag is it turns this way. You now have an octagonal bag, and the strap will be up at the top. This is your top section. So when you're sewing it together, all you do is take one side, start here at the corner. You'll be stitching here, then coming in to close this up. You'll make it stitching around all the way down to the bottom. Then you will be coming up here again, stitching around, stitching this down, going around and completing it with stitching. But you will be leaving this part up here not stitched together, because that's going to be the opening of the bag. And again, once we turn it right side out, then the strap will be attached. Another thing I'm going to do to make this even better is to sew with fabric a lining for the inside, because it's granny square, it has a lot of holes. I don't want things inside the bag to fall out, so I want a nice finished inside, and that will be with this fabric. So that's all there is to it. One thing I will add, I decided to do, Erica tells you, the lady that's the designer, tells you how to make a crochet handle. However, I decided to make mine a little stronger, because I tend to crochet loosely just like I knit loosely. I decided to use a fabric belt as my basis for the handles. And so I did use a navy fabric belt that I had purchased long ago from a thrift store. I cut it up to make the straps, and then I crocheted around the straps with that Purplexed yarn, which is what I use, the Big Twist Purplexed colorway, the same one I used for the stitching here on between the squares. That's what I used to cover the bag handle. In the future, I think I would just go ahead and make a regular bag handle like she makes in the pattern, because believe it or not, covering over the fabric bag strap took me quite a long time. And to make sure it was really covered fully, I had to keep scooching the stitches down. And so it just was a more time-intensive process than I think it's probably worth. I did like the button I chose. I think it's nice to have a button to close up the top of the bag. And you can't see the lining very well, but I was happy with my lining. I will include a link to how to go about doing that. But Erica does tell you in the pattern, she gives you, and the accompanying video, she does tell you how to do that. So you not only get the instruction for the pattern itself, but she gives you a lot of instruction for how to actually do all the parts of the bag, including the strap. So I was very happy with the overall pattern. This is definitely a bag that I'm going to be able to use. I always like, as you know, to be able to wear my handmade garments and then to carry my accessories. And this is a bag, I haven't made one in a long time. This is one that I think I'm going to really love wearing, especially since it's in my favorite colors of purple and grays. This will be very usable for me. Have you made a bag? Have you ever made a granny square crochet bag? And if so, how did you like it? If you have any tips for bag making, especially in crochet, let me know. I want to talk about the Christmas socks that I have completed in a rapid fire pace. This took me only 6 weeks to knit from start to finish, and I normally go much more slowly on socks. These are Christine Treasure Goddess simple ribbed socks, and I use the Hobie wool glitter. They have a collection each season, like they have Christmas and they also have Halloween, of a special collection of sock yarn. And this does have a gold glittery thread that goes through all the colors. It's comfortable though. Sometimes glitter yarn can be kind of uncomfortable on the foot and can be kind of grating and not comfortable, but these are very comfortable and soft. And I love the way they turned out. I love the way the variegated yarn repeats nicely to give you an almost identical sock. Not quite, but almost. It just naturally is set up to do the yarn changes in a certain pattern, self-patterning yarn. And so it gave me stripes that were pretty consistent. And I was very happy with this. I just had a standard heel flap, which is what I like to make sure that when I wear the socks in boots, that they don't get worn out. And so, yes, these turn out very, very well and very fast. Now, I still have quite a bit of yarn left over too. Next time they have a special collection, Hobie has a special collection for Halloween or Christmas, I'll try to remind you ahead of time, because usually it is about 2 months before the holiday. And now I'm left with the dilemma of what sock to cast on next. I have 3 potential yarn patterns that I would like to use, and I'm going to tell you about them and show you the yarn here. I have 2 different yarns that I'm going to consider. First of all, I'll show you the 2 yarns. I have one sock pattern that is called Mercury Socks by Kim McKenzie. This is a free sock pattern on Ravelry, and my friend Caron recently completed a pair of these socks in a beautiful teal color. And so I'm going to post a picture. She gave me permission to post a picture of her completed socks. They were lovely. They're a lace sock. And so I'm really tempted to make that. I'm excited about that particular one. And if I do, I'm going to probably keep a solid sock yarn to make it all one color. I don't feel that a lot of lace pattern socks look as good in variegated yarn. So this is Christine Treasure Goddess, her Treasure Toes sock yarn in the color Ghost Ship, which is almost a charcoaly. It's a beautiful color. It almost has a kind of charcoaly, almost purpley tint, but it's called Ghost Ship. And I picked that up the last time I was at her yarn party in the fall this year. So I think if I make that sock, and it is a lace sock, as you can see, that Carolyn made, and I think Judy's making a pair of those also. She might be making hers in variegated, I'm not sure. So there is that. Now, if I were to make that, another possibility is there is a pattern called, what's the name of it? Crazy Horse. I'll put links to all of these. This has a picot edging, and it has also kind of a lace pattern, but it's a pretty simple, kind of mock cable-y lace. And I saw someone at the yarn party making these with the yarn, with the Christine's yarn. And so I'm torn between those 2 sock patterns if I were to use that yarn. Now, there's been another sock that's been calling my name since last summer, actually. I think I ran into it. I bought the Emma's beautiful, super silky sock yarn, and this is called Beach Please. Doesn't to me look like a beach. It looks like very lightly creamed coffee. And then I thought for the heel, I would use this brown, this leftover from my stash. And I believe this was a Malabrigo yarn a long, long time ago. Not sure what the name of it was. But I think these two together would really lend themselves well to a pattern I found called Me Time Socks by Laura Dobratz. Laura Dobratz, I believe, owns a knitting shop. And this was displayed in my knitting shop here in town. I bought the pattern and they had the socks displayed. And so I decided that they're a lace sock also, and they have an interesting vertical pattern. And so this is called the Me Time Socks. I'm going to put a link up to it as well. But if I make these, I will be using these two yarns. So now these may be, I really honestly want to make both of these socks, all three of the socks, but I like the sock yarn I showed you. So those are tempting to me. I don't know which one I'll cast on first. And as soon as I get my eye surgery and can see the small little stitches, I am going to cast on for one of the socks. And I'll show you next time in episode 40 what I end up going with. Tell me your vote down in the comments what you'd like me to see me do first. But I'll make a decision by the next episode. And now, for those of you who are spinners or who have thought of going into spinning to expand your fiber adventure, I want to recommend two books today and talk about them briefly. Briefly is the key word with me because I could talk spinning all day. But the first book is one that is just out called Twist by Michelle Boyd. My friend Luann, who used to live in the Sedalia, Missouri area and since has moved out of the state, she took the Master Spinners program for several years, and her teacher happened to be Michelle Boyd. So Michelle comes highly recommended not only from Luann, but J.C. Boggs Faulkner, who publishes Ply Magazine, also took classes from her and obviously found great value in her spinning teacher ability and her knowledge. So this book is beautifully illustrated. You know, it goes into, has very large, beautiful illustrations and in great color and easy to see. She talks about, you know, not only spinning but plying. She goes into a little bit about drop spindles, which are always helpful, so you don't have to just have a spinning wheel in order to benefit from this book. She doesn't specifically go into e-spinners, but it's all part of the same concept. And the part I found extremely helpful that very few people go into is the twist angle, how to tell if something is Z or S plied, and how to tell your spinning angle. She is an excellent teacher, and one thing I'm going to read briefly, it says here, there is no one way to spin yarn. We all approach spinning differently, some of us with great planning and intention, others with pure intuition. Wool can be handled in any number of ways for spinning, whereas certain fibers benefit by specific preparation and drafting to make a yarn we want to use. This book will look at how twist works and why, regardless of your personal spinning style, the fibers you are spinning, or your plans for the finished yarn, twist really doesn't care about your planning. The fibers you use have been so carefully chosen, etc. This book is how to work with twist instead of fighting with it. This book is not about how to spin, but rather what happens when we spin. It is not a roadmap. It is a guide to help you better understand the familiar places you already know. In spite of what she says there, I do think that this book would particularly benefit newer spinners because twist is the hardest thing to work with and understand when we first start spinning. And it's one of the largest frustrations that I think gets a lot of people out of spinning. And so I think having that understanding, yes, it benefits longtime spinners like myself, but it also would really, really help as a good foundation for those of you who are first beginning on the journey. I want to say, though, for me, being a spinning, a knitting spinner and also crochet, I find this book, Yarn of Texture, by Jillian Marino, and this has been out several years, but it is still my all-time favorite spinning book, all time, all over, for all the purposes of I would buy a spinning book. It says, why this book? Many spinners are coming from a knitting or crochet background. I'm adding crochet in there. As I know I did. I spin to use my yarn for knitting. These spinners know about yarn, know what they want in a yarn, and want to know how to make it. They want something unique, something specific that they can't find in a shop. So for spinners, I consider myself a spinning knitter, and my point for using the yarn, whether I'm spinning for a particular project or spinning for the joy of it, finding the yarn and the project to match is the key to this book. So she actually has projects in here. They are all knitting projects. There are no crochet projects. But I think she specifically helps you get the yarn that you're wanting to use for your projects. So if you're project oriented and want to actually use the yarn you spin, once you do have that fundamental understanding of twist, this book will help get into some of the specific techniques and things like how to work with hand-painted yarn and to get the effect you want. If you're knitting a sock, how to get the type of yarn that you're wanting for whatever it is that you're looking for in your project. So I would highly recommend this. This is an old-time, oldie but goodie. And by now you can probably get this from your library as well. So thank you once again for joining me. And as always, love what you're making and wear what you make. Till next time, goodbye everybody.